On the morning of March 10th, 1933, inside a quiet telephone exchange in California, a young operator suddenly froze. It wasn't a voice that stopped her. It wasn't a scream. It was something far more terrifying. A sound traveling through copper wires, low, deep, unnatural, like the earth itself was trying to speak. Her name was Clara Bennett, and in less than 60 seconds, she would make a decision that saved hundreds of lives. This is not just the story of an earthquake. This is the story of the warning that came before it. Los Angeles, early 1930s. Before smartphones, before automation, every call in the city passed through human hands. Rows of young women sat behind massive wooden switchboards, plugging cables, connecting voices, becoming the invisible network that kept the city alive. Among them was Clara Bennett. She was not the fastest, she was not the loudest, but she was different. Clara listened, not just to words, but to tone, pauses, silence. She knew when someone was lying, she knew when someone was afraid, and over time, she began to hear things others ignored. To most operators, static was just noise. Annoying, random, meaningless. But Clara didn't believe that. She noticed patterns. A faint hum that came and went. A vibration beneath certain lines. Calls that dropped at the exact same moment each day. One evening, she mentioned it to her supervisor. He laughed. "Lines aren't alive, Clara." She didn't argue, but she knew what she heard, and slowly she began to trust it. March 10th, 1933. The morning began like any other. Sunlight spilled across the city. Streetcars rattled through intersections. Voices filled the switchboard lines. But something was off. The hum was stronger today, deeper, not random anymore, constant. Clara adjusted her headset, listened again. There it was, a low vibration, like something moving far beneath the ground. She looked around. No one else reacted. The room was normal, but the lines were not. At 5:54 a.m., the sound changed. It grew louder, sharper, like tension pulling tighter and tighter beneath the earth. Clara's breath caught. She had never heard anything like it. It wasn't static. It wasn't interference. It was something physical, something real. And suddenly, she understood. This wasn't coming from the wires. It was coming from the ground. Telephone operators were trained for precision, not judgment, not warnings, not decisions. They connected calls, that was all. Clara stared at the board. Her hands hovered over the cables. If she was wrong, she could lose her job. If she was right, she didn't finish the thought. Instead, she moved. She plugged into a school line. Her voice trembled. "Evacuate your building, now." Silence. Then confusion. Then panic. She didn't wait. Next line, police station. "Get people outside immediately." Next, factory. "Leave the building, right now." Her heart pounded. Seconds were slipping. Across the city, people hesitated. Some listened, some didn't. Teachers paused mid-lesson. Workers stepped away from machines. Officers looked at each other in confusion. And in the exchange room, Clara kept going. Line after line, warning after warning. Her supervisor shouted at her to stop. She didn't, because the sound in her headset was getting louder. At 5:56 a.m., the ground moved. The 1933 Long Beach earthquake struck with violent force. Buildings shook like paper. Windows exploded outward. Walls cracked, then collapsed. Streets split open. The sound was deafening. Not just noise, but power. Raw, unstoppable power. But in some places, classrooms were already empty. Workers were already outside. Doors were already open. People who had listened were standing in the streets as buildings behind them fell, confused, shaken, alive. When the shaking stopped, the city was changed forever. Damage stretched for miles, lives lost, families broken, and somewhere inside a quiet telephone exchange, Clara sat frozen, her headset still on, the lines now silent. Officials later asked questions. Who sent the warnings? Why? How? Some called it reckless, others called it impossible. Clara never stepped forward, never asked for recognition, never told her story. She returned to work, plugged cables, connected voices, listened, just like before. But now, she knew something the rest of the world didn't. Sometimes, the warning comes quietly. History remembers disasters, the damage, the destruction, the numbers, but it rarely remembers the moment before, the second when everything could still change. On a quiet morning in 1933, one woman listened when no one else did, and because she did, hundreds of lives continued.